All right, so welcome to our Forging Mighty Sons podcast. And today I have a very special guest. I've known him for about 10 years. We met in a private mastermind a long time ago, and I really respect him and his skills, not just in communication and selling and influence, but as a dad, as a businessman. He's done lots of crazy stuff, and I'm sure he will share some of his stories with all of us. He's a great guy, very influential in my life. And I'm very honored to have him here with me today. The man is Ryan Stewman. Welcome, Ryan.
Man, thank you for that. That's very nice of you. And man, we do go back a long ways,
Mm.
from Russell's mastermind back in the day. So that's pretty cool. I think some of the coolest people that I've met that I've had long relationships with, I've met in these groups over the years. I may not get along with everybody in every group, but there's always been one or two people that I've been able to connect with and stick with long term. And you're one of them, man. I'm honored to be here. And I think it's really cool that you do this for dads. I think a lot of people just treat dads like, hey, you're a man, figure it out, rah, 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 and until recently, if you didn't get fatherly advice from your father, or if you're someone like me that didn't really have a father and didn't get fatherly advice, you were just like repeating the cycle. And now guys like you and I are willing to open up and talk, which before maybe 2 decades ago was seemed soft. You're talking about being a dad or whatever, should just be a man. And so but it's much needed, especially in today's society as divorce rates go up. And I'll tell you just right off the jump here, I saw a study the other day, Martin, that the Stanford had done over children and their families in a 25-year study. Have you seen this?
I heard about that, but
Yeah.
go on. Yeah, go ahead.
And so they took these kids from birth to 25 years old, and they looked at the most successful ones, all the way down to the ones that ended up dead or incarcerated, right? And it was a large group of kids. I don't know the exact number, but a large enough to make it a test case study and a long term. And they started in 2000 with all the kids born in 2000 and tracked them to 2025. Study comes out and it shows that the best scenario for a kid to be successful in today's society is for them to have a mother and father as a parent present. This is the most successful kids of all these kids in this large group over 25 years. Their parents were still together. That's how important it is. Here's
Wow.
why: the least successful group of kids were raised by a single mother. The second best, now this also includes, and I won't go down that, but it also included gay couples and things of that nature, right? But
Mhm.
here's the other thing. The close second, like almost the same as having two parents, was being raised by a father, a single father. So that's how important we are. And if you think about how the world works, how society functions, they've been hiding that from us the whole time, us thinking that women are the super moms or the super parents. And I'm not saying that they're not, but I'm saying that I know my wife, and she's really nice to the kids and lets them get away with shit that I would never let them get away with. And if they go through their whole life that way, they won't learn the discipline that they need to from their father, which creates problems down the road.
That's right.
So that was long winded. Thank you, but I mean that's how important I think it is, really being able to talk to fathers, because you have a great father. I didn't, so I'm lucky that I've met other guys that were willing to open up and kind of educate me over the years to help me be a great father.
Well, that's like one of my very first questions is what happens if dad is not present? And I know from your life story, you did not have one growing up. So you have a very unique perspective on fatherhood because you grew up without one and now you are a great one. Uh, like maybe just to reiterate or just go through more detail, in your opinion, if the dad is not there, what will be missing from that child or that son's life, since we're talking father son? What's going to be missing?
Well, even the worst dads, if they're present, it's still hard to be a horrible dad outside of some form of massive abuse and stuff like that. But um, the way that I see it is, I'll give you an example in my life. When I was about 5 years old or so, my parents divorced, and my dad ran off, and I didn't see him again until I was like 17 or 18 years old. My mom had a few boyfriends, but eventually settled down with this guy, and they got married. And herein lies the problem that most people never see the big picture of. But fortunately for me, I was unfortunately in this situation. So we are our parents' DNA. So my dad is one of a kind. I'm one of a kind, right? And my mom is one of a kind. So I have a connection to a blood connection, they call it, to my father. His DNA is in my DNA. So certain mannerisms I'm naturally going to make, certain ideas, certain thoughts I'm naturally going to have. He's going to resonate with that the most because his mind works in some form of that way. And that's how it was passed down to me. So there's clearer communication, there's an understanding and empathy of why things go right or things go wrong. And what happens is you place a stepfather in there that doesn't share that, and he could have the best intentions in the world, but he doesn't understand. So what your birth father might think is a natural response, your stepfather might think is a smart aleck response, and then start fucking tapping into you, and that might actually hurt your potential for the future because he thinks differently. He's now suppressed something that's actually a superpower that your birth father would have known to nurture down the road. And that's kind of what happened to me. My dad split, and 2 or 3 years later, my mom's married to this guy, and he adopts me, but not because he like loved me. I think it was to help my mom get my dad out of child support that he owed my birth father out of child support, and then that got him out of my life so stepdad could be the man and the thing, right? So but we didn't see eye to eye on anything. And now there's some things that he taught me, hard work by forcing me to go to work and not letting me have fun on the weekends because I was a troublemaker.
Yeah.
That discipline's lasted me a lifetime, so I'm grateful for that. But I see my brother now. I got a brother who came. My dad remarried, and they stayed together until he was 23 years old. They're divorced now too, but they stayed together until he was 23 years old. That dude graduated top of his class at the Naval Academy. He's working for like the helicopter company, the defense contractor, making six figures, graduated from college, got a wife and a kid. Like that's what happens when your parents stay together. Me, I didn't tell you guys this. Me, drug addiction, prison twice, divorce, just fucking
Mm.
just absolute terror of a person. And I look at my brother, my sister, who's same thing. She's 23. My brother, they divorced when he was 21. My sister, she was 23 when they divorced. I look
Mm.
at her. So her parents were together all the way up until she got out of college. She's married. She lives in Japan. She teaches English in school over there. And it's like went to college to be able to do this stuff, like living her dream, and all. Then like me, by the time I was their age when they were doing this stuff, I was counting days till I was going to make parole. And that's how important firsthand in my experience being able to articulate this back. That's how important a father is because your kid, whether it's your daughter or your son, I have both. Like, there's certain things that I know that if they said around somebody else, it would totally be misconstrued, misunderstood, whether it's a teacher or a babysitter or whatever the case. But I have that empathy for them, that understanding, because like, yeah, I think that way sometimes too. It doesn't make it right or wrong, but that's the nurture that needs. Now, also, I know I have certain tendencies I need to lose, so I correct that and see that in my kids so that they're better than me as well.
Now, with all of this life experience, without a dad, your hard upbringing, in your opinion, what would be the key lessons that you think a dad should absolutely teach his son?
As far as sons, it's our job to teach them to be a man, but that's such a broad thing that nobody really defines. Like, what is a man? Because to maybe my neighbors who are from India over here, maybe a man to them is growing up and becoming a doctor or an engineer or working in the tech field. To my neighbor over here, who's African American, they might think, the son's really good at football. They've got signs on the yard. That might be their path to greatness. You know what I'm saying? And so I look at it as it's different. What does make a man? Because that's decided by culture, it's decided
Mhm.
by your definition. But let's just think of what a man in general that surpasses culture and stuff like that means. It means politeness, it means empathy, it means responsibility, it means
Yes.
integrity, it means excellence as a man. I don't know about you. I figure you're probably
Mhm.
this kind of person, but I see if I'm walking to the store and I see a cart out of place, I'm the guy that picks it up and puts it in place. If I see trash, like in the morning when I run at the gym, I pick up trash off the side of the road and go when I'm headed back into the gym and throw it away. Just these little things that I see my
Mm.
kids. My kid works out with me now. I see him doing that. You know what I mean? I never had to tell him, pick up the trash, boy. He's like, oh shit, I don't know why dad does this, but I'm doing it too. These things like teaching them how to
Mm.
properly talk to a woman, how to not the crap they hear in rap music and on TV and stuff. That's not real life, but I think these are the qualities. Like, so let me summarize all of that.
Yeah.
Our main job as a father to a son is to teach him how to be a man. A man is core values established by you, and it's going to be unique per father, right? But core values established by you of what you've learned and benefited from, and how they can be better than you. The whole goal is like, my oldest turns 14 here in a couple of days,
Mhm.
and I look at him and he's such a good dude, good school, in athletics and everything else too. When I was his age, I was smoking weed and skipping school every chance I got, night
Mm.
and day. But I've taught him these sets of core values. I've taught him these principles in life and been instilling with him. Yesterday he went bird hunting for the first time, so it's dove season in America, and so me and a friend took him bird hunting, and he shot deer and stuff before, but he's never shot a shotgun. It's a whole different world. If any of you guys know anything about guns, and so he's out there, first shot of the day, first bird, he hits it right, goes right down. Dude, guy's a natural, right? He
Yeah.
goes, but the bird flew through the tree and down into this creek. And so the bird's like floating in the creek down there, and it's thick brush. So there's like no way to get to it. And I'm like, you win some, you lose some. Nature will take care of itself on that one. And he goes, no, man, I'll clear it out and figure out how to get down there. Then he goes down there, and there's a cottonmouth trying to get the bird out of the water, which is a poison, a venomous water snake in Oklahoma. So he comes back up and gets the forks and goes down there and is fighting this snake for his bird. But he ended up with the bird, and when I see teaching him to be a man, like he took that responsibility. Now I took a life, and this is what you're supposed to do when you go take a life. Despite what you said, Dad, that's why I think, man, that's better than me. You know, because me, I'm sitting there as the dad, and I'm like, obviously the snake was going to eat it. Something will eat it. You know what I mean? You ain't going to be able to go down there. And he's like, nope, that's my first one. That's what I'm going to do. This is how it's supposed to go down. And those are the core values and things that we need to instill in our children. Now me growing up, my dad didn't set those examples for me. So what you would have seen with me in that situation is I would have just been like, all right, dad, went back to shooting the next one or whatever the case may be. But that
Speaking
was
of
the
core,
key.
speaking of core values, would you mind sharing some of them with the dads watching this, just to make sure that we can compare notes and see if we're doing our job right?
Yeah, yeah. So we're very like when I say what I'm about to say, we don't take it lightly. Like I could call my son down and he would recite them to you. My wife knows them, our employees know them, and because they're life core values. They're not just business or just. And here's the thing about core values, they're a set of principles you live by. See, we hear this term like when we play seventh grade football, and they're like integrity, blah, 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 and these things, and you don't think nothing of it because you don't even understand the meaning of those words really at that age. And then we kind of write it off. But I learned from Andy Frisella, thank God he was able to come into my life with these teachings years ago of those core values define and set the culture of not just your business. Andy taught me the stuff in business, but I'm like, dude, why wouldn't it work at home too? Right?
Yeah.
Like, my wife and I run our house like a business. We run our family like a business. Why wouldn't we put the same core values in place? So, when we have four simple core values, and we made it easy for everybody, employees, kids, everybody to remember in an acronym that's RISE, RISE. But we don't just have core values, we have what it really means. And so, when I say is like, what R stands for responsibility. And responsibility is we make no excuses. So when my kids hear the word responsibility, you need to take responsibility for this. It's been programmed into them. They automatically know there's no excuse. Okay, dad, sorry. You know, got a text from my son this weekend. I texted him and he didn't hit me back. He was out with his friends. And he hit me up the next day. He didn't make up a bunch of excuses. He was just like, sorry, I made a mistake, and I'll pay better attention next time. That's all we
Mhm.
want from him anyway,
Yeah.
So, but he's been drilled. Responsibility, you don't make excuse. He could have said, oh, we were doing this. Oh, we were doing this. My phone, blah, blah, blah. But instead, sorry, it won't happen again. And that's what we want from him. So it's the word in the core value and then the meaning behind it. Number two is integrity. That
Mm.
means we do what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it. And once I get through these, I'll tell you about how you can govern your kids according to these as well.
Mhm.
S is service. It means we go above and beyond, hence the picking up trash when we run, things like that. And then E is excellence, which is we do the work.
Mm.
So those are our four simple family and life goal beliefs that my kids will pass down to their kids. Now, here's what happens if one of my children lies to me. It's like, hey, what's our second core value? Integrity. Okay, well then, why are you telling me something that's not the truth, right? Or if they say, hey, I'll get this done on Friday, and then it's Saturday, it's like, hey, did you get that done? No, well, hey, I thought you had integrity. And it's not a, hey, you're a liar and you're lazy. It's like, I thought you had integrity. I mean, you
Mm.
say you do all the time, but I can't tell. Come on, So the same thing. It's like, oh, I don't want to do that. Hey, come on, son. Service. We go above and beyond. We really have these conversations. There was shoot probably last year, maybe the year before. Every night at dinner, me and the wife quizzed the kids on the core values. They were old enough to start understanding, and not the daughter yet. She gets a pass, obviously, but the three boys were old enough to start understanding. So every night at dinner, we're driving these things into them, driving these things. So me and I'm driving to work. Hey, what's core value number two? They'd be back there counting on their fingers to figure out what letter it was and stuff. So but we did that for 90 days, maybe 6 months at the most, and then after that it's locked in, memorized, and becomes a habit, right? And so you know, uh, again, like let's say that your kid's not doing their homework. And it's like, hey, man, you know where excellence comes from. Yes, we do the work. Well, then you're not applying yourself here. How are you ever going to be excellent in this area of your life, which is a required skill to make it in life? If you look around, son, at what we have, then how are you ever going to acquire this if you're not mastering and putting in the work to be an excellent reader, excellent at math, excellent? And so you can govern your family once, and this works in business too, by the way. But once you establish those core values, then you're having a conversation of how they violated the core value, not about their character. Because once they understand that they violated the core value, they should adjust their character to abide by it.
We could end the interview right here, Ryan. Like just that by itself is gold. I hope the dads are taking notes.
Kind of
Very
passionate
powerful.
about this. I'm like,
Very
I may
powerful.
not be good at a lot of things, but I feel like I'm really good at fathering.
I love how, because I share like many of those same principles, it just always amazes me that the most excellent guys in business or fathers, principles are universal. And it's just fun to hear you talk about some concepts that I also strongly believe in.
Well,
Um,
I'll tell you this, man. So, and you're, I don't say this to brag, just hear me out for the audience. You obviously already know this, but I've been in big circles with super famous people, with billionaires, and not just like I met a billionaire once. Like I've like friends with some of them, and very close. Been very fortunate to work with some amazing people and meet them, and
mm,
and I say that because, at one point in my life, I had the watch and the car and the fanciness. Now I had a private jet lease and all these things. And I go around because that's what all these people in my circle at the time had. And I go around, and they were always the dads. They were always fixated on the next business deal and the next thing. And I can't outflex a billionaire in what business I'm doing. I can't outflex a guy worth $100 million with a private jet that I chartered. I can't.
yeah.
Those guys don't care about Lamborghini. I'm never going to beat them in a car race. I'll never have better cars than, let's say, Andy Frisella or whatever the case, right? But the way that I look at it is like, but I can beat them by being a better parent, and then my kids will have all that shit. I not sacrifice, but I'll make the sacrifice to be the best parent, and then my kids will go on to have all of this shit, which is what I'm doing it for in the first place anyway. And so I'm thinking everybody on the internet, because of the business I'm in, that's in my industry, they're all about how much money they make and blah, blah, blah. And about 2 or 3 years ago, once I had gone through and met all the celebrities for 10 years and all this stuff, I'm like, man, I think the thing that's missing the most is like, okay, cool. Everybody's teaching how to make money, but who are the guys with money that are showing you how good of a father they are? Like you, if you spend 5 minutes on my Facebook, you're gonna be like, this dude's rich and loves his kids. That's the impression you're gonna get. Most everybody else, man, like you never see them doing family stuff, and that doesn't mean that they're not a family person. Maybe they don't want to post it on social media, but they're missing the biggest lesson they could be giving their audience because they've already talked about how to make money 50 different ways on their YouTube channel. Now talk to us about how you're able to raise your family when you're under all this pressure. Talk to us about, show us your kids, because here's what I know. If you come around my kids, you're going to say this, man, you have really good kids. That's a sign of an active parent. You see some of these guys that I've met over the years that have a whole lot of money, spend their life on the road speaking or building a business or opening new franchises and locations, and you meet their kids, and sometimes you're like, man, that kid doesn't have any father giving him any discipline, any correction or any of that stuff. Because again, moms are nurturers. They typically let kids get, and especially if you got a rich mom, she's, but whatever you want, we got the money, just like I'm doing my own thing. Man, it is so important to be an active father. And so, I go on this like, okay, the ultimate flex is to be the greatest dad possible. What is the definition of that? That means I have to be raising the greatest man to ever live.
Mhm. Amen
I
to
sit
that.
there in that, I sit there in the field yesterday thinking the world don't know it yet, but I'm sitting next to the coolest, greatest human to ever live, you
Hell
know?
yeah, man. Hell yeah.
But you have to believe that.
Hmm.
You have to have that intensity of love and like, so how am I going to teach this young man how to become the greatest man? I've carried the ball so far, but man, I had a hard upbringing, the adoption and, prison and a lot of it by my own doing. I'm not
Yeah.
pushing off responsibility, but they're not going to have to face any of that. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not going to have to face any of that, and I've done pretty good where I'm at. So man, if I do my job right, they'll be able to run the ball. And what I'm saying about raising the greatest humans won't be a lie.
If we follow this train of thought, like it goes into fearlessness. Like me with my kids, I want all my kids, like, cause I have four kids as well, and I wanted them, and I want them, and it's always a process, but in different areas. But I wanted my kids to be fearless, like totally fearless, or at least be able to manage fear. So I love the story about your son, about him going in the water and then getting his dove. Uh, but I made it a personal mission that my kids had no fear of anything, no fear of heights, public speaking, swimming, being hit, being punched in the face, falling, because that's a big fear. People like the fear of falling,
Yep.
and trying new things. What are some things that you did to ensure that your kids were fearless? Because I think it's a very powerful, funny story here. Like my daughter, my youngest, 14, was at a water park recently with her friend, 14, and was approached by a bunch of older men. Okay. And I love the way she responded to the situation. But these men, older, around 25 years old, started speaking to them and harassing them and asking them their age and stuff like that. And even after my daughter told them that she was only 14, the man would continue harassing and asking them if they wanted to go to his car to have fun. Okay, so like I wasn't there when this happened, of course, but she was there with her friend, and I just love the way that she responded. She started screaming at the guy, and she found the security guard and then the police. But I want my kids, my daughters, and my son to be totally, totally fearless. So I know what I did to build that and instill that in them. But I'm curious to know, what did you do to make them fearless?
Yeah. So a couple of cool things on this. I do the dad thing. If my kids when they're young, they're like, so. oftentimes if we know it's safe and they're scared, right? But we know that they're totally safe, whatever it is that they're scared of. I'll make them do it through the crying, whatever the hell that I got to deal with, and then probably make them do it a couple times. Because here's what I learned: there was um, believe it was some branch of the military, and they took these test subjects that were military people because they were going to have to go into extreme warfare scenarios, right? And I believe this was either like Vietnam era or maybe a little, maybe the Korea War, but whatever. And I'm watching this video on it the other day, this YouTube video. I'm always watching weird stuff on there, but it was overcoming fear. How they got these guys, that's what it was. How they got these guys to do things like storm the beach of Normandy. How they got these guys to go in knowing the Vietnamese were kicking our ass and had tunnels under the whole country, right? Like, how did they get these guys to be fearless anyway? And you know, the a lot of people are like, oh, they were just dumb kids that they sent out there. That's not the case. The guys that they needed to do the scariest, craziest missions, this is how they programmed them. For 6 weeks, they would put them in a room for an hour a day and have them visualize over and over. Now they would talk about it, speak about it, have the worst case scenario of the operation. So let's say the worst case scenario is they cut each of your fingers and toes off and then eventually slit your throat, right? They're walking them through these most grotesque. Well, what happens is the brain doesn't believe a lie or the truth. The brain
Mhm.
believes what's repeated. Okay, that's why in martial arts you get better because you're repeating it. The brain, and then all of a sudden you get more confident. And the brain
Yeah.
believes what's repeated. So as these
Mhm.
worst case scenarios repeated over and over again, they became normal, right? And so when a person starts in martial arts, they're probably terrified as a young person, or even some adults that get punched in the face. Once they got hit enough times, it's like that's just part of the game. So it's
Yeah.
this same process. So I'm not saying terrorize your kids into being fearless, but the repetition of making them face what they fear makes them no longer fear it. So
Mhm.
I did that just by accident. It's like, hey, if they were scared to do something, like, and I know it's safe. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to put them on a tightrope over some stuff or whatever. But for example, I have one of my kids went to this place where they do zip lines across the top, 100% safe, kids' place, been open for forever. And I went the first trip, and no matter what I did, he got up to the top and came down. No matter what I did, other than going up there, hooking him and pushing him off, which I think would have been unacceptable to the management, would have been fine to me, but management might have made us leave.
Yeah.
It just wasn't going to happen, right? The next time he goes back, and same thing, man, we kicking and screaming. The third time, he's like, I'm good, because he had got up there on that podium enough times to
Mhm.
think about it. And then the next thing can I go again? Do you have more money so I can go again? Right. And we see that pattern all over and sorts of stuff. But that's what we got to remember as dads: these repeated lessons, these repeated core values, these repeated putting them in fearful situations makes them believe those core values, makes them not fear those situations. So
Yeah. Me too. I love for my son, being able to change a tire, to ride the ATV, to operate the tractor, because we're on a small farm as well, like you. We have a beautiful estate here, and I just found it necessary to put him into as many different situations as possible and see how he's able to handle it. And then from there, guide him along, like as he's fearful, but as he does it, the more action you do, the more results you get. And then if you like the results, then you build confidence, and then that cycle starts over. So I
yeah,
love.
just like with the snake, 3 years ago when we bought this place, if he'd have went down there and saw a cottonmouth hiss out of me to shit himself, you know what I mean? But now he's run into him so many times, he's like, I'm just gonna whack this thing and grab my bird out of here. So, because he's repeated that fear scenario, it's not a fearful. Same way before I got this place, I didn't really care for them either, but now they don't bother me because I've been in so many
Mm.
situations where I've almost stepped on them or whatever the case may be. And it's like, it's just snakes, whatever. But that was like a big, big fear for me before we got this place. I had to get over that fear quick because they're fucking everywhere out there. But you know, but that's what it's just, you said change the tire. I taught my kids about a month or so ago how to plug the tires on their ATVs when they get flats and stuff like that, and I look at it twofold. It's like, number one, it's less work that I got to do, and I'm getting old. It's time for me to retire from some things. And number two, and we don't know if you'll be able to drive cars or ATVs in the future or how that should have worked, but at least they have a skill that I bet you nobody else in my kid's seventh grade class knows how to plug a tire.
For sure. For sure.
You know, and he could go take one off of a ATV, or hell, maybe even a car if he had to, and go make it happen. He ain't gonna get stranded on the side of the road as long as he's driving and keeps a plug pack in his car.
That's right. Because that's what a man does. He's supposed to protect his family, protect his property, and to be someone that you can count on and being prepared. So I love the whole survival type of approach, like going camping and just like being able to handle yourself in many different situations.
Yeah, we're very similar. You have four kids, you have land, you're
Yeah.
raising them up outdoors.
Mhm.
You're in the extreme cold, I'm in the extreme heat, but they're both out there teaching them how to survive in the extremes. You know what I mean? And so I think that's really really cool. In in reality, the other thing that just adds to the being a great parent thing is, dads, if you get a chance to lease land, own land, build on land, man, there's just something to be said for being out there in the heat. Like, so I have this ranch in Oklahoma, and we just finished building a house on it
Hmm.
maybe a month ago. Okay, maybe a month and a half ago, just finally moved in. I've owned the place for 3 years. So for 3 years, every Saturday we wake up, except for in the summer, we might go out there a couple days a week, but every Saturday we wake up at 6 in the morning, get in the truck, drive an hour and 45 minutes to the ranch, stay there all day working, riding four-wheelers, fishing in 105, 103-degree heat. It's not cold to you, but 30 degrees to us is freezing here. So, and then in the wintertime, being freezing to death for us, y'all can laugh at me on the Canadian side, but I'm from Texas. And so, and no place to stay, no bathroom, you know what I mean? No food for 30 minutes, like no house to go to, no shelter. And we did this shit every day for 20, no, for 34 months, every weekend for 34 months.
Holy
Maybe
shit.
we missed a couple, but man, I have never been so close to my kids. Think about that. That's almost 4 hours drive time that we
Mhm.
get in the car listening to podcasts and things that I want them to listen to. Sure, they might be on their phones or whatever, but that stuff's still playing in the background, listening to audiobooks. That's us working together as a team to, make sure that, hey, dad, did you get ice? Yeah, I did. Okay, cool. I got the water, to make sure that, because they know, shit, after the first couple times they forgot shit out there, they're like, I'm not forgetting that again. But man, I have never felt so close to my family as being able. And people go camping with their families for that
Yeah.
reason, and shit, even vacation to places with their families for that reason. But if you guys get a chance, I'm not saying go buy a big ass ranch and all that, but even if you just get something like a deer lease or a hunting lease or something that you can spend time with, not just your sons but your daughters too. My daughter's raising cows and has got two pet horses and a cat and her own four-wheeler. I mean, she's going to be the toughest, girl in her school by far. You know, she probably would have hit that snake too, and she's only four. But that
Yeah.
she's been there her whole life. It's no big deal to her.
I think one of the mistakes that the dads do as well is just they'll pay for an activity, but they won't participate. Like swimming. I taught all my kids, all four of them, how to swim. Like I could have bought lessons. I could have brought them to a public school and have a teacher or a trainer teach them. But I felt it necessary to be the one who teaches them how to swim, how to ride the bike, how to ride the ATV. Uh,
Yeah.
like there's a place here for skydiving for so just I think being there and not passing on that responsibility to another professional. I think dads sometimes make a mistake, or even like boxing, punching. Even if you're not a professional boxer, buy some damn focus mitts and just like run through combinations. It'll make that connection between both of you so much stronger.
Yep. Yep. I have some. I'm obviously not trained at all, and don't want to fight anybody. But we have gloves and stuff like that for the kids. It's just fun, good workout.
For sure.
12-year-old goes to the CrossFit gym in the mornings with me. He does homeschool, so he goes to the CrossFit, 2, 3 mornings a week with me. So,
Excellent.
and here's the other thing: if you don't teach your kids, either someone will, or they'll end up having to pay for it the rest of their life.
Yes.
And I think that's how they make us dumber. Like my dad taught me to work on my stepdad taught me to work on like engines and cars, how to change brakes, tires, shit like that. Well, now, dude, you got to have a fucking engineering degree from Harvard to work on a GMC vehicle. You know what I mean? Or let alone if you go fancier than that. And it's like, well, I don't know. So now I'm going to outsource it. So now if your car breaks down, you don't know what the kids don't, most adults don't know. What is that knocking? What
Yeah.
does that logo mean? What does that light mean? I saw a meme one time. It said in like 1975, it taught you how to, the owner's manual of a GMC truck taught you how to change the oil. Now it says don't drink the washer fluids. And so but that's the thing. If you don't teach your kids, then it's going to be expensive for them too, because I wish there was a lot of things that my stepdad or my dad would have taught me as a kid that would have saved me a shitload of money learning out here on this ranch.
You're dropping really like a very, very powerful nuggets of wisdom, and I hope the dads are taking notes. I got two more questions for you. Like you mentioned something earlier about how to properly speak to a woman and how to approach a woman. Like, I'm just curious, what did you do with your sons? Because they're at a certain point when they're 12 or even before, but 12, 13, 14 years old, they start thinking about that. And I'm just curious, like, without going into the birds and the bees, but like, what did you teach them about properly speaking to a woman? And if you find someone that you're attracted to, like, what did you teach them about that? Like, I'm just curious about that.
Hey, it's funny you mentioned that. My 12 and 13-year-old, we were just on vacation 3 weeks ago in Florida.
Mhm.
And while we're there, they're on the beach, and they're talking about these girls that were on the beach too, that were about their age, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, and they both have girlfriends, but like school girlfriends or whatever, and it's summertime, so they're doing. He's like, Dad, had what should we say to him? And he's like, because in school it's different. He's explaining to me, in school it's different. You're in class together, you know each other, so you
Yeah.
talk. And he's like, I never really like cold approached, and he didn't use that term, but like cold approached anybody, right? I say, here's what you do. It's when you see that she's going in, or maybe they start packing up over there, you head up to the top of the pool. Just keep an eye out. Don't be weird. See whatever door she's going through. Make sure you're the door dude that holds the door open for her. When she says thank you, say you're welcome. What's your name? And now you got a conversation started. you know
Mhm.
our lady comes back, of course. But most, it wasn't about a pickup line. It's like, hey man, let's go show her that you're a good dude with manners, and just start a normal conversation with her. Because a lot of people, and a lot of men in general, have a perverse way of looking at women. Not in the sense of like OnlyFans or porn or whatever. Like that's
Yeah.
a whole other thing. But I'm just saying, they think that you have to spit game to them. And then they wonder why this generation of females is all about money and blah blah. Well, you've been training everybody to spit game that you got money and you're pimping and all this other kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And we see these culture swings, especially here in the States, from one side all the way to the other. And that gets old. And what happens, they have this perverse view of women. And so they I'll buy you this, I'll take care of you there, and you think you have to pay for them there, or you have this sexual view of them that it's got to be all about that. I treat my kids like this. Looks like your sister, she's a normal person. Why don't you get to know them as a person first? And then that's going to help you make a better decision. Because if you start looking into girlfriend material from the get go, you'll start missing red flags. Why don't you look at everybody as a friend and a person to get to know first, and see where it goes from there?
Mhm. Mhm. Yes.
Because most guys, they just see a woman and they have either an idea of, hey, she's hot, or whatever the case may be, or they think, oh, I would have to be this guy. And Hollywood does that to us, and books do that too. They think you got to be this, that, and the other. It's like, man, you watch the internet, most ladies are out there like, where are the normal dudes at? Well, my son holds the door open for girls, you know what I mean? But he's I'll say this too, though. My two oldest boys, anywhere me or my wife go, it is rare that they don't beat us to the door and open it for us, just as a sign of respect. You know, it's not like, hey, get the door. Like they're almost always the one to open the door for the rest of the family to go in. And if it's a two-door situation, one of them will be on each one of them for, you know, even when I'm going out of the office, they beat me through the door and open it for me. And it's, I've never really taught them that or focused on it, but they just see that as a sign of respect, you know?
Mhm, mhm. Okay, I like that. Um, in closing, now this is a bigger question, but the most important lesson that you taught your kids, in your opinion, like when you go back through all the lessons from any age, what was the most important one you think that had the most impact? It's a biggie.
Yeah, it is. Because I really think it's a culmination of
Yeah.
everything. Um,
Hmm.
you know, because it's like the human nervous system. Everything's kind of each lesson's connected to each other. You know, they
Yeah.
overlap each other. But if if the best lesson that I have taught them, I would believe would be our core values. I mean, I feel so
Yes.
strongly about those and hammering them into their minds, and because I think that's something that it wires into everything too. Those four
Right.
things: responsibility, integrity, service, excellence. Those wire into every area of our lives, and you know, I teach them, hey, if we'll always think, is this the best version of this? Is this excellence? Am I doing this with excellence? Am I taking pride in my work? You know, do I take pride in my voice? You know, when I'm in my word, when I went to prison, you show up in a prison yard and everybody's wearing the same clothes. Everybody smells the same because you're all wearing the same soap. Everybody's hair is cut the same because that was the rules in the Texas prison system. It was one haircut only at that time, maybe different now. So everybody's poor, okay, because you're not rich in prison. I mean, it's not like he's driving a Jaguar in here and I'm driving a Hyundai or some shit, right? So
Mhm.
you're all equal. So when you're equal, what do you have? You have really like three things. You have your strength, okay, your ability to fight. If you're the big dude and everybody's equal, you're probably going to run some shit for a while. You
Mhm.
have your intelligence, okay, because there's little dudes that run gangs in prison because they're super smart and they understand how culture and
Yeah.
function works.
Mhm.
And you have your word.
Mhm.
If someone can trust you, your word is currency, right? If I can't trust you, if you tell me I'm good on this and I go do this and then I get jacked up by the guards, my life could change, right? Or whatever the case may be. Word is important. If I You can't keep paper documents in prison if you're gambling or borrowing, you know, store stuff for people. So your word becomes very important. So I say that because even though it was a terrible time in my life and I had to go through some hard shit in there, there were some lessons that I took out of here. It's like, you know, when you don't have anything, those are the three things that matter. And the great news is you can control all three of them. You can get
Mhm.
stronger by working out. You can get smarter by reading and studying, and you can have integrity and be a man of your word and never even have to worry about remembering what you lied about.
Mic drop. Boom. That was excellent. Excellent. I appreciate you very much, Ryan, and thank you for taking the time to speak to us. And again, hopefully, the dads watching this have gotten some nice words of wisdom. And if they're on the right path, then they'll be able to confirm it. But if they're not on the right path, I hope that our discussion is going to help them, just stimulate them or inspire them to change or to improve their responsibility as a father. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Yeah, man. Hey, I this is my favorite thing to talk about. I didn't know it was going to be, but man, I had a lot to say, and you guys can tell that I really care not just about my own family, but I care about the future of this world, and it's dads are the most important part of the equation, in my opinion, and backed by a lot of facts as well, and so I'm pretty passionate about that. So I appreciate the work that you do and letting me come on here and give a different perspective and sometimes they say the right combination of words can unlock a closed mind, and hopefully, maybe some people had some closed minds about some stuff today that we unlock that for them.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I'll